Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view from New Zealand of the Electron rocket at RocketLab Launch Complex 1B as we count down now 23 minutes, 23 seconds, and counting until launch of Tropics 3. This is the second launch for RocketLab in the contract they have with NASA for Tropics. These were picked up after the failure of Astra, launching the final two satellites required for the Tropics mission. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. And we're glad to have you joining us here this evening. See people tuning in all around the world. We got Wyatt in Kazakhstan. We got Pam's in New Jersey. We've got Ghost in West Virginia. Mr. Black's in South Australia. We got Uncle Yukon in Seattle, Washington. Ben is in Georgia. We've got Monty in California. G. Thomas is in Manitoba. We got lots of people tuning in here today. We're glad to have you joining us here. Still Thursday evening here in North America, but for those of our friends on the other side of the world, it may already be Friday. A launch for the end of the week, and we're glad to have you joining us here today. We're going to answer your guys' comments and questions as we always do throughout today's live launch coverage and Coast Phase 2 deployment. So you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live. As always, we invite you to follow us over on Twitter, TLPN_official. If you happen to see the Electron launch today because you're down in New Zealand, if you take any photos or videos, make sure you send that to us on our Twitter or via our Discord. Also free to join, and we invite you to join as part of our space community because space is better together. Of course, getting all the YouTuber stuff out of the way, it is a launch day, which means if you use promo code LAUNCHDAY, you get 10% off of everything over on the TLP Network shop. Now that that's all out of the way, start setting in those questions, tagging us at the Launchpad, and we're going to work on starting to answer those as we continue through today's stream. But today's mission, coming to a storm near you, is the second of two launches on Electron to deploy NASA's time-resolved observation of precipitation structure and storm intensity with the constellation of small-sats Tropics mission. The first mission, Rocket Like a Hurricane, was Rocket Lab's 36th overall Electron mission, and it launched just about a week or so ago. NASA's Tropics constellation will monitor the formation and evolution of tropical cyclones, including hurricanes, and will provide rapidly updating observations of storm intensity. This data will help scientists understand and better understand the processes that affect these high-impact storms, ultimately leading to better modeling and predictions. The constellation will be deployed in a very specific orbit consisting of 4 CubeSats as a minimum required at an altitude of 550 kilometers of an inclination of 30 degrees. All 4 satellites need to be deployed into their orbit within a 60-day period, making Electron one of the ideal vehicles for a rapid launch availability. That's why we saw NASA switch to them after Astra failed away. Now, we do expect to have live commentary beginning here in about a minute, so once we have that, we will, of course, listen in to Rocket Lab Mission Control and NASA, but you're looking at a live view of Launch Complex 1B at the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand, where Rocket Lab is preparing to launch the second Electron in a back-to-back missions for NASA, but we're glad to have you all joining us here today. As we said, you can keep sending in those questions even during NASA and Rocket Lab's commentary. We'll work on answering those in the chat, and then we'll be back to answer those through the coast phase. Today's payload deployment, 33 minutes, 45 seconds into flight, so we hope that you'll stay with us following launch and battery hot swap as we await for that payload deployment. So make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. We've got an interview with RFA coming out very soon that we can't wait to share with you with an update on everything they're working on. And if you want to suggest interviews, you can do so over on Twitter. Just put out a tweet tagging us at TLPN_official. T-minus 19 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. Just waiting for Rocket Lab to pick up here to give us an update from Mission Control, but taking a look at all of the statuses that they are giving us as media, we do have confirmation that the roads, the marine zone, and the airspace have now been closed for today's flight. The airspace was just closed not too long ago, and we are ready for launch here today. Propellant loading well underway into Electron on its first and second stage. They will not be attempting, from our knowledge, to recover today's flight, but we'll wait for a confirmation from them during their commentary portion here in just a few minutes. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. It really does help us out. We know it's the middle of the night, and we appreciate you being here with us. If you're here in North America, if you're in Europe, a nice early morning start for your Friday, almost the weekend. And if you're joining us from Asia, we're glad to have you in your evening today. T-minus 18 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. Beautiful sunset happening over in New Zealand as we count down to launch of another Electron rocket, the 37th orbital mission for Electron. Waiting for RocketLab Mission Control to come in here, and there's the cue that they're starting it up with their live intro, so we'll be expecting to hear from them momentarily. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and we're glad to have you joining us here today. Quick question while RocketLab runs their intro. Mitchell, what is your favorite rocket type to watch launch? Is it Falcon Heavy's bright streak of orange, Starship's purple grid of flame, or Blue Shift's blue minimal flame engines? That's a hard one. I've seen a lot of Falcons. I've been lucky to do that. I've seen SLS, and I've seen Starship. SLS, if you're talking about the favorite to watch due to its to the type of rocket, I'd have to say SLS wins. Seeing those SRBs is quite incredible. Let's listen into RocketLab Mission Control as we count down now 17 minutes and counting till launch.
May 26th here at RocketLab Mission Control as we await the liftoff of our 37th Electron launch, once again from Pad B at Launch Complex 1. Hello and welcome to Launch Day. You're joining us live for our broadcast of Coming to a Storm Near You, a dedicated launch for NASA to deploy the second half of the Tropics constellation. I'm Imogen Ray.
And I'm Keegan Black, and we're excited to have you join us for another Tropics launch. It's also an extra special day for us here at RocketLab as we celebrate the 6th anniversary of Electron's first launch. We're targeting liftoff for 3:46 p.m. New Zealand time, which makes it a late launch for our West Coast US viewers at 8:46 p.m. Pacific, and a super late 11:46 p.m. Eastern for our East Coast viewers. Whatever time it is where you are, thank you for joining us, and we hope you're well topped up with coffee.
Today's launch is the second of two for NASA to deploy the Tropics constellation, which stands for Time-Resolved Observations of Precipitation Structure and Storm Intensity, with a constellation of smallsats. This innovative constellation of 4 CubeSats will monitor the formation and evolution of tropical cyclones, including hurricanes, and will provide rapidly updating observations of storm intensity.
This data will help scientists better understand the processes that affect these high-impact storms, ultimately leading to improved modelling and prediction to help save lives. Here's more from NASA about the Tropics mission.
Here's a question. How does a...
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We've synced our clocks. Now it is T-minus 17 minutes and counting until launch of today's Tropics mission from New Zealand. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and we're glad to have you joining us here live tonight for the launch of Tropics 3, the second mission for NASA that RocketLab will be launching, them having picked up this contract from Astra. As we count down 16 minutes, 30 seconds and counting, RocketLab's playing a video with some beautiful copywritten music, so that's why we're going to be muting here for just a minute, but it's telling you a little bit more about the Tropic satellites and how they will be used to track these storms, hurricanes, and cyclones, to be able to detect and have a better idea of how they form and are developed so we can ultimately predict them better and also be able to hopefully save more lives and get people out of the way of danger. These satellites are in a set of minimum of 4 Tropic satellites being required, and all of the constellation launches in sets of 2, but they need to launch within a 60-day time period to be actually functional for the constellation. You can see that they work in pairs where they are scanning and able to bring in a greater level of detail of these cyclones, giving us these weather maps that we all watch for our local weather, but also especially watch when we have these larger storms happen in the area. Gizmo, thanks so much for becoming a VIP spectator. Appreciate the support. It really does help us out. As we've said, if you're new here, welcome. If you have any questions, you can send those in the chat by taking us at the launch pad. Let's listen back into Mission Control.
So proud to be supporting Tropics and grateful to be once again working with our mission partners at NASA.
Just over 2 weeks ago, on May 8th, Electron lifted off for the first of these 2 dedicated launches and successfully deployed 2 Tropics CubeSats to a 550-kilometre circular altitude above Earth at an inclination of about 30 degrees. All 4 of the Tropics CubeSats need to be launched to their operational orbits within a 60-day period, but the sooner the better, which is why we're back on the pad just 18 days later, ready to go to space again. Let's catch a replay of that mission. Rocket like a hurricane.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Vehicle has cleared the pad, safe from launch pad. Beginning pitch over.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
15 seconds to MECO.
And if you're just joining us, you're looking at a live replay of Rocket Like a Hurricane that launched on May 8th. This was the first of these 2 missions carrying 2 Tropics satellites on each. Tropics 1 ultimately was launched on Astra, but unfortunately was lost, costing 2 of the satellites for the constellation. T-minus 13 minutes, 42 seconds, and counting until launch. RocketLab playing this replay here, giving a little bit of an idea of what we will expect happening later today in just a few minutes. At T plus 1 minute into flight, Electron will be supersonic. 11 seconds later, it will reach max Q. At T plus 2 minutes 29 seconds, we will have MECO, or main engine cutoff, of the first stage, immediately followed by stage separation and second stage ignition. Fairing separation will happen just over 3 minutes into flight, with battery hot swap 6 minutes 52 seconds into flight. Let's listen back into Mission Control.
Lincoln Laboratory at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and others including researchers from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, and several universities and commercial partners. So with 1 launch down, we're excited to get the next away today ahead of the North American hurricane season.
Just like our first Tropics launch, today's mission is flying from Pad B at RocketLab Launch Complex 1, our private orbital spaceport on New Zealand's Mahia Peninsula. As we approach the final minutes in the countdown, our launch operators at Range Control in Mahia and here in RocketLab's Mission Control are working through their final checks before liftoff. Commanding this overall effort is Launch Director Julia Vembacher.
Shortly, Julia will ask all operators for an update on their launch status to determine if they are good to proceed with today's planned launch. This is called the Go, No-Go poll, where operators will indicate if their systems are green, go for launch, or red, which means they're working an issue.
Thank you so much, Red Planet, for your super chat there. Why were these moved from the launch wallops? I believe it was due to them being ready, having rockets ready on site. Let's listen.
Avionics.
Avionics, go.
GNC.
GNC's go.
Recon.
Recon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET. MET polling for go, no go. Coming back later to MET. RF. RF LD and mission code.
RF is go.
Thank you. MM.
MM is go.
And MET.
Mid is go.
LD sub.
LD sub is go.
The go, no-go sequence is now complete. We are T-minus 11 minutes and 58 seconds in counting. We are go for terminal count at T-minus 10 minutes. From this time, the 3-way procedure is in effect.
Fantastic news there from Mission Control. All greens across the board, which is what we want to hear. We are go for launch, which means we are coming to a storm near you very soon indeed. We're on track for a liftoff of 3:46 p.m. New Zealand time today, in about 10 minutes from now.
Today, with this Tropics launch, we're also celebrating a special anniversary for our favourite rocket. On May 25th, 6 years ago from Launch Complex 1, Electron took to the skies for the very first time. As it crossed the Kármán line and completed a perfect first stage burn, stage separation, second stage ignition and fairing separation, Electron became the first orbital class rocket successfully launched from a private launch site and opened up a new era in regular and reliable launch for small satellites.
The flight also ticked a few other world firsts. The first launch for an all-carbon composite rocket with the world's first 3D printed engines, powered by a completely new electric pump-fed cycle. 36 launches and 161 satellites deployed to space later. Today we're ready to launch our latest pair of sats to space on Electron and wish it a very happy 6th launch anniversary as it flies.
Today's launch will be our 37th Electron mission, but the way we go to space for the two Tropics launches is a little different from a standard Electron mission to low Earth orbit. The launch follows a standard format for the first 6 or so minutes of the mission. Electron will lift off from the pad thanks to the 9 Rutherford engines on the rocket's first stage. These engines will burn for around 2.5 minutes, lofting Electron to about 90 kilometres above Earth's surface. From here, Electron's first and second stages will separate, with the spent first stage falling back to Earth. Shortly after this, a single vacuum-optimised Rutherford engine will ignite on Electron's second stage to propel the kick stage and Tropics CubeSats for another 7 minutes, positioning them at that 550-kilometre altitude.
This is where the mission departs from our standard format. Typically, Electron's second stage takes the kick stages and payloads to an elliptical orbit, and we use the small 3D printed Curie engine on the kick stage to circularize the orbit. For the Tropics launches, the second stage is used to circularize the orbit, and instead, the kick stage's Curie engine conducts what's called a plane change maneuver to position the Tropics CubeSats at an inclination of 30 degrees, the best spot for monitoring the formation of tropical storms. Here's more from Guidance, Navigation and Control Team Lead, George Buchanan.
I'm Dr. George Buchanan, Guidance, Navigation and Control Engineer, Team Lead, but you can just call me George.
If you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are at T-minus 7 minutes, 33 seconds and counting until Tropics will launch from RocketLab Launch Complex 1B at the Mahia Peninsula. The teams have polled go for terminal count, and at this time, the 3-world hold rule is in effect. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. Take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream as we count down to launch. This is the second Electron launch in a matter of 2 weeks, 18 days, launching here. And they're playing a little bit of a video explaining today's launch with the load in the inclinations that they are actually able to do with Electron following the actual launch, if it was to go straight out versus an actual curved trajectory seen on that map. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live over the next few minutes. And of course, we will answer more questions live through the coast phase, as it will take 33 minutes 45 seconds from launch to actual payload deployment of the 2 Tropics satellites. Prior to that, we were running through the timeline just before the last update. Battery hop swap will occur 6 minutes 52 seconds into flight. The second stage will then have cutoff, or SECO, 9 minutes 27 seconds into flight, immediately followed by second stage separation. At that point, we'll enter a coast phase, and at T plus 31 minutes, the kick stage Curie engine will ignite for a 2-minute 40-second burn, and just about 10 seconds later, that is when payload deployment will begin of the 2 Tropics satellites. So a very quick final burn there at the end of about 2 minutes, 10 seconds prior to deployment, and then deployment will occur. Now under 6 minutes and counting until launch, the airspace, marine space is closed, the pad is clear, and weather is go for launch here today. That's why we had a delay of about a day that they wanted to make sure that they had better weather conditions. Catching up on the chat, seeing any quick questions here. Princess is asking what rocket this is going to do. This is the Electron rocket. This is RocketLab's rocket. Mitchell's asking, are there any space startups that you're particularly interested or excited for? So many, actually, Mitchell. Really excited for SES out of Edmonton. Really excited for Rocket Lab's Neutron. Really excited for RFA, for Orbex. and a few others as well. So there's so many new launchers coming online. It's a really exciting time. Jeremy, why are they not recovering the rocket? So just like with any new vehicle, sometimes it is more important to focus on the customer mission who are paying you to launch than actual focusing on trying to prove other systems. So they are not always going to do that, and Electron is not always going to be recoverable. That's why you see no red lines on this. This rocket was not built to actually be recovered. As we continue into the countdown, we're going to listen back into mission control for the rest of the count. Make sure you stay with us following launch for payload deployment, as we are now at T-minus 4 minutes, 20 seconds and counting until launch of Electron on its Tropics 3 mission. Let's listen into mission control as we look at a live view of Launch Complex 1B, the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand.
Another operator confirming that LOX load is complete.
Then, with under 60 seconds to liftoff, the propellant tanks will be at their optimum pressure levels for launch. Ground control will then confirm that the water deluge system on the pad is ready to be activated for when the engines on the rocket ignite for launch. This is what will cause the large white cloud of water vapour at liftoff. At T-minus 10 seconds, you'll hear the launch director counting down to liftoff. Those 9 Rutherford engines we've mentioned before will ignite at T-minus 3 seconds, and the launch pad's hold-down mechanisms will be released. Electron will then take to the skies for its 37th launch, and the final Tropics CubeSats will be on their way to space. Let's listen in for that final launch sequence.
To all operators, this is LD on mission code. From now on, there should be no red flags on your critical LCCs. VCON LD on mission code.
LD VCON.
VCON, please lock the auto sequence and confirm.
Confirmed.
Thank you, and VCON, please confirm that all expected primary flight computer ASCOs are green.
Confirmed.
Thank you. To everyone on mission code, we are go for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes. LDs go for launch.
T-minus 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Launch director is go. All the boards are trending green for launch. T-minus 2 minutes, 10 seconds. T-minus 2 minutes and counting.
Vehicle is on internal power. AFTS is green and ready for launch.
T-minus 90 seconds.
LOX load is complete. System is in recirculation. Anti-geysering is disabled.
T-minus 60 seconds.
Stage 1, Stage 2, press for flight.
High purge flow, engine purge enabled.
T-minus
Deluge
30
activated.
seconds. Water deluge active. We are go for launch of coming to a storm near you.
And T-minus 19 seconds and counting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And liftoff of Rocket Lab's 37th Electron rocket from Launch Complex 1B in New Zealand, carrying NASA's final 2 Tropics satellites to orbit. Some beautiful views of the launch here today. Next major milestone is going to be vehicle going supersonic at T plus 1 minute, followed 10 seconds later by max Q.
And that is a beautiful liftoff for Electron. The final 2 Tropics satellites are on their way and coming to a storm near you. With Electron now having cleared the pad, the next milestone is max Q. This is the point where the forces on Electron are at their greatest. So we'll listen out for clearance of that key moment from Mission Control soon.
Clear at max Q.
Stage 1, propulsion is nominal.
And there we have it. Electron has passed through max Q and continues on the way to space. Right now, Electron is traveling at over 2,000 kilometers per hour and is at an altitude of 20 kilometers.
Now, coming up next is main engine cutoff, or MECO, where the 9 Rutherford engines on Electron's first stage shut down to make way for separation between the first and second stages. Within seconds, the single space-optimised Rutherford engine on the second stage will ignite to carry the kick stage and the Tropics satellites all the way to orbit. That should take place shortly at around T plus 2.5 minutes. So let's listen in to that call from Mission Control.
Stage 1 propulsion still nominal. Please stand by for MECO in roughly 30 seconds.
$15 seconds to MECO.
AOS at Chatham Station.
Entered burnout detect mode.
And MECO confirmed.
Stage separation successful.
Stage 2 ignition.
And just like clockwork, we have had MECO, Stage 1 and Stage 2 separation and ignition of Electron's second stage. Coming up very shortly, we'll also see Electron's fairings separate and fall away. These 2 carbon composite halves form a protective nose cone over the Tropics satellites, keeping them safe during ascent. Once we're in space, though, they're not needed as the forces on Electron are not nearly as great. So we can get rid of them and clear the way for payload separation. Now, for this mission, because we're headed to that 550-kilometre circular orbit straight away with Stage 2, we're leaving the fairing attached just a little bit longer than usual. That jettison event should be coming up in the next 20 seconds or so.
Fairing separation successful.
And that's fairing separation confirmed. We are at 4 minutes into flight now, and coming up next is a process unique to Electron, battery hot swap.
The pumps on Electron's Rutherford engines are powered by Electron pumps, which draw their energy from batteries. Once we deplete the batteries, they are dead weight that we don't want to carry all the way to orbit, so we eject the batteries and swap over to a fresh set in flight. That milestone is coming up just before 7 minutes into the flight, so still a ways to go yet. So far for today's mission, we've had a perfect liftoff. We've cleared max Q, had a good first stage burn, and separation of Electron's first and second stages. Fairing has also separated as planned, and now we're 5 minutes into the mission.
So far, a nominal mission for Coming to a Storm Near You, the second of 2 dedicated launches to deploy a storm monitoring constellation for NASA.
Stage 2 propulsion still holding nominal.
Guidance is nominal, 200 seconds remaining.
Now we're coming up on that all-important battery hot swap. Powering engines with batteries is one of the things that makes the Rutherford engine special. The single stage 2 engine requires a longer duration than the stage 1 engines, so we have to hot swap the spent batteries to a third fresh one. This is one of the final gates to orbit, so let's listen into the operators in mission control for that call.
Nominal, approaching hot swap. Throttling down. Swap successful.
And there you have it, a clean hot swap for the second stage Rutherford engine. Electron continues to orbit with around 2 minutes remaining in today's stage 2 burn.
Speed is good, altitude is good, Electron is good, T plus 7 minutes into the second Tropics mission for NASA. Just in time for the Atlantic hurricane season commencing at the start of June, these 2 CubeSats, along with the 2 that we launched just 18 days ago, will provide members of the meteorological community with hourly returns over the same storm to more accurately predict patterns, which could save the lives and livelihoods of millions of people.
T plus 8 minutes in, and we are now around 30 kilometres away from that 550 kilometre target orbit. As George mentioned in the video earlier, this stage 2 burn is taking us all the way to a circular orbit. Then we have that dogleg inclination change just over the equator to put us in the correct plane for payload deployment coming up at 33 minutes into the mission. Electron is continuing well at speeds of over 19,000 kilometres per hour, ahead of SECO and kick stage separation.
SECO stands for second engine cutoff, and you'll know when the second stage completes its burn because the nozzle glowing bright orange on your screen right now will turn back to grey as it cools down after the engine shuts off. Immediately after that shutdown, Electron's kick stage separates from the second stage, and in around 1 minute the Curie engine will ignite and begin that plane change manoeuvre ahead of payload deployment. Again, mission control will call out these actions, so let's listen in for confirmation of SECO.
SECO confirm.
Stage 3 separation confirmed.
Nominal transfer orbit achieved.
And that is SECO confirmed as planned. The kick stage has also cleanly separated, ready for that final Curie burn in around 20 minutes from now, followed by payload deployment at T plus 33 minutes. Because this final burn and deployment of the Tropics CubeSats happens in a ground station blackout zone, we won't get live confirmation of those milestones. We also won't have live video footage of the deployment process. So here's a quick animation to show you what will be happening in orbit just 25 minutes from now.
So it does sound like they are going to actually wrap up their live broadcast in 22.5 minutes from now. This is a simulated view of what we would be expecting to see. If it was your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad. Here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. Make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another launch live, our space news updates, or our exclusive one-on-one interviews. Also, make sure you join us over on our TLP Discord. It's totally free to join. And click the link in the chat for our Lunex 1 mission. We are sending our very own mission to the moon in partnership with Astrobotic, and we want to invite you to send your name for free on board, or maybe send a photo or video for a small fee on board as part of our payload. And we'd love to invite you to check that out, Lunex 1 on tlpnetwork.com. Can see here a simulated view of what this deployment sequence would look like of these two Tropics satellites. This deployment expected to occur 22 minutes 30 seconds from now.
Coverage of payload deployment. We'll take a short break from the broadcast and join you again in around T plus 45 minutes to provide an update on deployment and to confirm mission success. We'll leave mission control comms up during this coast phase so you can hear it as soon as it happens. We'll be back with you soon.
And it does sound like they actually are going to keep the live stream up, so we will stay live here as we await confirmation of payload deployment. That's going to happen about 30 minutes from now. Payload deployment expected 33 minutes 45 seconds into flight. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live over the course of the next little bit of time. A couple of people asking who's talking. My name is Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad. We're glad to have you joining us here this evening. If you are a TLP member, you saw a few of our behind-the-scenes videos from the launch of AX2. If you haven't seen those yet, they are now available to the public. You can see a little bit of a behind-the-scenes of what it was like going into the remote sites ahead of launch. We'll try to grab a link for you guys so you can check those out on our channel. Dropped a few shorts there. As something a little bit different. If you guys like it, we'll try to do more of those over the coming launches as we go on site more often. Thank you to NASA, SpaceX, and the U.S. Space Force for that opportunity. Electron currently traveling towards the northeast over the southern port of the Atlantic Ocean. So the Electron rocket can carry payloads up to 300 kilograms into orbit from one of their two launch sites, either from the launch site today in New Zealand or from the launch site in Wallops. And that's a total of 300 kilograms. So depending how many satellites are on board, affects obviously how much each of those can weigh. Princess, love the channel. It's awesome to see the rocket lift off. Thanks so much, Princess. Appreciate it. Have a good night, Matthew. Pam, Zach is disabled to get better info on hurricanes, cyclones, and typhoons. That is the hope. And they're really hoping that, excited that they're going to have deployment here in about 20 minutes so that these satellites will actually be in an operational position ahead of this year's hurricane season. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Yes, it's over the South Pacific. That little white kind of triangle in the center of your screen. That is the live current location of Electron. I'll see if we can set up our secondary clock here to get you guys to payload deployments timeline. One moment to set that up. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat. We'll work on answering those live. There we go. We do have that clock now running for payload deployment. T-minus 17 minutes until payload deployment is expected. Soviet, I'm a space enthusiast, and I actually want to stay up to date in rocket launches. Thank you for the Rocket Launches Live. Absolutely, Soviet. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Ryan, do the Rocket Lab have any rocket launch figures similar to the Falcon 9? Not yet, but they are working on the Neutron rocket. Mike, this is 2 satellites going up for NASA. And you're correct, Corner. We have Bader 8, the launch tomorrow, the next launch attempt for that. Weather's still not looking great. Saturday looks like to be the best day for weather for Bader 8, so it's very possible we could see another delay tomorrow, but we'll see. T-minus 16 minutes until payload deployment. Man on Mars, thank you so much for that very generous super chat. I appreciate it. Thank you for the coverage, man. Go Rocket Lab. Favorite space movie of all time and why? Ooh, that's a good question and very generous. Thank you so much. That goes directly into us getting better gear to bring you guys even better coverage. Favorite space movie? So there's a few, which I know is one of those answers no one likes. The movie I remember watching first and is still one of my absolute favorites is Space Camp. It's held up pretty well. I watched it recently. It's definitely got some older parts to it, but it was definitely one of those first space movies I remember watching that really inspired me and set me as a kid dreaming of being able to be in a space shuttle, which I got to about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, actually get to step inside to a space shuttle. Shuttle Independence, not one of the flown ones, but a full mock-up space shuttle from NASA, and actually got to stand inside of it at Space Center Houston, and is absolutely fulfilling that childhood dream of stepping into a shuttle. And hopefully one day we'll actually get to board something other than shuttle, and hopefully in this nearer future. So Space Camp, definitely that movie that's very close to home. I think one of the more, like, if I wanted like a technical one, obviously Apollo 13 you can't beat. I think that's a really, that's always going to be one that's unbeatable. Another one that I always really enjoyed was Red Planet. It's one I don't hear a lot of people talk about. It came out probably a decade before The Martian, but had some of the similar feelings of The Martian idea. So Red Planet was really, really good. But I mean, there's so many out there. Armageddon, Galaxy Quest, The Martian, Interstellar. Of course, then you get all the Star Treks and everything. But if I had to pick a top 3, that's hard. Top 5: Space Camp, Apollo 13, Red Planet, The Martian, Armageddon would be those most likely. Probably forgetting another one, and then it's probably even good. But if someone says, let's watch a space movie, have you watched Space Camp? If they say no, we're watching Space Camp. So if you have watched it, it's not a spoiler, but there's a scene in it that one of the kids looks up at the stars and they say, I'm going up. And, they don't know what's going to happen, of course, over the story of the movie, but they say, one day I'm going up. And I said that a lot as a kid. One day I'm going up. And then shuttle ended, and I was like, oh, one day I wish I could go up. Now I live every day, and I've said it almost every day. I now live in a mindset of, I know one day I am going up. I just don't know on what rocket yet. And that's pretty exciting to live in that era where it's no longer dreaming of getting to go up. It's if you work hard and you save your money and, you wait another 10, 15 years, getting to go up is going to be a lot more affordable and a lot more of an opportunity. The fact that I've already had conversations with a launch provider about purchasing a ticket over a year ago, something truly incredible. Do not have the budget for it. If one of you would like to sponsor it, reach out. Need a few $100,000, but having talked to a launch provider about getting to actually go up across the Kármán line, experience zero-G, see our beautiful planet, it's truly incredible, even just at my age, that's something I can do. So, Astronaut Farmer, yes, that was, I watched that in school and it was fantastic. So many good movies. Now, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate emails for this. I haven't watched Space Odyssey. I know. Space YouTuber hasn't watched 2001 Space Odyssey. I'm waiting for the chat to go nuts. Kev, nobody should watch Moonfall. No, that was half a movie. That was half a movie. That was not inspiring. Yeah, here comes the shame. We'll add it to the list of movies I have to watch. Yeah, Astronaut Farmer, definitely want to check out Uncle Yukon. It was really, really good. The Right Stuff. I'm not sure I've watched the movie. I watched the show of it. It was really good. Don't watch, read the book for 2001. Interesting. Crumble's asking, what did I think of Gravity? I think it raised some really important questions around what is happening in our atmosphere. And I think that's a really big thing that needs to continue. Okay, you can't beat Spaceballs, Brian. That's true. It's a good one. It's a classic. I watched it for the first time last year. Great movie. Funny. Makes me understand Elon even more. But I would not say inspires the next generation. And I generally watch real story movies, documentaries, and inspiring type stuff in the very, 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 very little free time that I have. Again, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those. Princess, almost there. We are 8.5 minutes away from payload deployment. Now, we won't get confirmation right away. It will take about another 10 minutes for us to get payload confirmation just due to the ground station coverage. Ooh, Ganja is asking, what song would be your go-to if you were getting ready for launch? That is a really big question. Because it depends. Are you on a NASA mission where you have a 25-minute drive to the pad, or a SpaceX mission where you have a 15-second drive? I mean, there's the classics I'd put on my playlist, Rocket Man, things like that. I would probably put, there's a song, I believe it's by Starfield, called I Will Go. I would put that on my playlist. Trying to think of some others that I would put on there. There's a song by, I'm blanking the name artist, just called Go. I would put that on as well. It's excuse me, it's getting late. We're almost there. It's a song that uses the Go's from the Apollo era, which is really cool. Yeah, let us know in the chat what songs you would do. Ooh, Denise bringing in the Contact movie. Yes, I always forget about that one, but it is a classic. Man's on Mars. Will you be broadcasting live on site for Artemis 2? As long as NASA has us. They haven't opened up media accreditation and paperwork yet, but we are waiting for it. We were on site for Artemis 1, and we do plan to be on Artemis 2. We have been planning our Artemis 2 coverage for over 6 months now, and we're already planning our Artemis 3 coverage. So our team is super excited to hopefully be on site for that, but also with team scattered around the Space Coast, bringing you live coverage not only from the NASA Kennedy Space Enterprise site, but from around the entire region. Thank you, Co. Go is the public service broadcasting. That's the one we were looking for. It's fantastic. Fred, Starfield, haven't heard from them in a long time. Yeah, Starfield, John, and I want to say it's Tim. I'm blanking on their names. I know the guys. John and Tim Newfield. Know the guys, met them many times, worked with them on some of their shows up in Canada. Absolutely fantastic group. Both have broken off and done truly incredible music themselves in their own groups as well. Was lucky enough to be at one of their reunion shows a couple of years ago. I guess that would have been just before the pandemic, so it's been a few more than a couple of years. But yeah, Starfield, truly incredible. Honestly, anything by Starfield, I would take with me. Brian would take Queen, Kevcore, Guardians, Galaxies 1, 2, and 3. I mean, yeah, if you bring that with you, you're pretty much set. If you got those 3 soundtracks, you are golden. Space Odyssey Chris Hadfield cover, that'd be really good. Brian saying definitely needs Rocket Man. Charles is saying Starship Trooper from 1971. I haven't watched that one just yet. Shade is saying movie Gattaca is an oldie but most inspirational space movie ever. I'll have to check it out. Thanks, Shane. Appreciate that. I'll definitely check that out. Might not count, but Coneheads? I haven't watched that one either. Have a great night, Justin. Point, is the kick stage solid? Doesn't it light? The kick stage is not solid. It is a liquid engine. If you want a really good kids movie, like not kids movie, it's a Disney movie, but like if you want a movie designed for kids, but that's just a good light-hearted movie that's like what I hope, a generation or two kids get to be raised on, Xenon on Disney was really good, and then it had a couple sequels. It had the sequel, and then it had a third one, and I think it had a fourth one. But they gave a really good idea of what hopefully our future could look like with the expansion of space exploration that we are seeing now. We're really, really lucky to get to live in the time that we are, to see us exploring out into low Earth orbit, back to the moon, and then on to Mars. Shane, have I seen Gattaca? I haven't yet, but I will add it to my list. There's a lot of movies I haven't seen that I have to catch up on. For the last 15 years, I've always had 1 to 3 personal projects on the go on top of school or youth leading or other stuff. So gotta do some catch up. Have I seen the new Mario movie? Not yet, but it looks good. We are now just 2.5 minutes away from payload deployment, about 13 minutes away from payload deployment confirmation. Ganj is asking, what's your favorite launch of all time? Inspiration 4 was my first launch. It was a crew launch, and it was the first all-civilian mission to space. That one is going to be really hard to beat. But it is very closely followed behind, excuse me, by Artemis 1 and Starship IFT. I would say Artemis, then Starship IFT, believe it or not. Artemis 1 was just emotional and excitement and a new era, and we were feeling like we were going to the moon, which is something I never believed we would see as a kid. That was never something that I pictured in my future. Starship was awesome. Really cool to see. Really glad we were there. Appreciate SpaceX inviting us as media to be there. But was definitely something that the emotions were, oh, thank God it didn't explode on the pad and us be in danger. So it was I felt more nervous about Starship than I did about SLS. Princess, you okay? You're yawning a lot? It is 12:20 in the morning, and I was up early this morning, and I've been up late all week because we've had a lot of these 11:30 to 1:30 a.m. launches. So, but that's okay. We're here for it. This is space. It happens 24/7, and we're excited to be here. And we are now 30 seconds away from payload deployment. Should occur in 30 minutes. Now, we will have a delay of when we actually get that confirmed. You're just joining us, though. Welcome here to the launch pad. We are awaiting now 10 seconds from scheduled payload deployment. We'll be awaiting for payload confirmation. She'll take about 10 minutes time. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. Princess is in Texas, 1 hour behind. Yeah, a little bit earlier for you, so still not too bad there. I'm normally in Mountain time zone, but I've now adjusted to Florida, which is going to be really fun to go back to Mountain to, because I normally live off of Eastern time zone anyway, so I might just stick to it. Denise, you just answered my question, Zach. I was wondering about the launch time tomorrow, maybe. If you guys ever have questions about upcoming launches, head on over to tlpnetwork.com/launches, or just tlpnetwork.com, and you can click on the launches. That is where our launch control is, and you can see all the upcoming launches. We'll have information on their launch time, as well as their launch windows, so you know if for any reason there needs to be a delay, how long that launch window is. Brian, do you have a favorite rocket engine? Not rocket, but an engine. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Ooh. I got to see Raptor 1 and 2 up close as media at the Starship update last year. So that was really cool because a lot of people hadn't seen Raptor 2. But I think the RS-25 has such a cool flight history. Sadly, we're throwing them all away in the ocean, which we shouldn't be doing. They should be in museums. But yeah, I would probably say it'd be between. I'd probably say it's RS-25, followed by F1 from Saturn V. Is quite it's a mammoth of an engine. So I'd probably say RS-25, then F1, and then probably Raptor 1 and 2 kind of together. What about you guys? Let us know in the chat. Do you have a favorite rocket engine or a top 3? We are now 2.5 minutes since payload deployment. We're expecting to have confirmation of payload deployment in about 10 minutes from now. Always thought the LR87 on the Titan Gemini looked cool from corner. Yeah, I agree with that. It's a cool looking engine. Brian says the Merlin. It's a cool one. The kick stage was confirmed to have separated from Electron second stage. Correct. SLS Block 1 is majestic compare with Starship. SLS is a really cool looking rocket. It looks like a moon rocket. Starship looks like a Mars rocket. SLS looks like a moon rocket. Charles, my uncle, worked on the Titans when they were in the nuclear missiles. Oh, that's awesome. Ryan says Saturn V. We're now 4 minutes since when payload deployment should have been occurred. We are awaiting confirmation from RocketLab that payload deployment did occur. We should be getting that here in about 4 minutes or so. Seems like RocketLab's got a little bit of a buffering issue this evening. So we'll give it a couple minutes, see if they get that smoothed out. If not, we'll confirm via social media. Man on Mars. You're landing on Mars. Who would you rather have as your ally? Zerg, Terran, or Protoss? Well, I know who Zerg is. Protoss looks cool. Well, maybe I don't know who Zerg is. Yeah. I know Zerg with a U. I haven't played StarCraft, so I unfortunately wouldn't know how to fully answer that question. What would you pick? Ryan, are you going to be at any of the next super heavy launches? I plan on not missing a Starship launch until we have a successful flight. That is my plan, to be at every launch until we have a successful orbital flight. And then I'll go back down for the next cargo, like the first cargo, first obviously like crew or any major new test. Obviously, we won't be able to be there for all the time. We are working on some strategies to be able to bring you coverage there otherwise. Hopefully we can talk about more in the near future. Have a great night, Soviet. Thanks for being here. We'll see you at another launch. Denise, that says amazing, Zakubi. I appreciate it. I hope one day we can get up there. Take you guys with us. Now 7 minutes since when payload deployment should have occurred. Waiting for confirmation. It does look like they are having some buffering issues this evening on the RocketLab stream. If that doesn't iron out, we might wrap it there for the evening and await confirmation via social media. It does look like we are in a buffering state, unfortunately. From RocketLab, that's on their side as we are streaming, because you can still hear me. But we will await confirmation of payload deployment via social media. That confirmation expected in the next 6 to 7 minutes. If it was your first time here, though, welcome. Here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. So make sure you engage that subscribe button and never miss another live launch coverage, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. We have our RFA interview coming out in the very near future, and we're excited to have you as part of our community. Make sure you follow us over on Twitter. We're going to be launching some new Twitter content and Twitter Spaces following around launches and space news, as well as consider joining us over on the TLP Discord. We're working on some ideas of some new content for on Discord specifically as well. Motivated, have you followed JS Webb since the first images? Yes. I've been looking at all of them. There's so many beautiful images that have come from James Webb. And I agree, Man is on Mars for All Mankind is going to be incredible this season, just like it has the last 3. Excited to be allowed to talk about it a little bit more. Previously worked for the fruit stand, so had to be a little bit careful. But it's been long enough since I've worked for the fruit stand that I am able to talk a little more freely about that now. But with that, looks like we have lost RocketLab. We should get confirmation via social media in the next few minutes. So that is going to do it for us live here tonight. If you haven't yet, subscribe, and we hope that you will join us next time. The next launch coming up is Beta 8, launching from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. We hope you'll join us live for that right here on the Launchpad. But from TLP's Space Coast studio, my name is Zach, and we will see you next time. Good night.